All right. Chapter 8. Tom ran out of the kitchen of Billy's house, holding the sizzling frying pan out in front of him with both hands. The screen door banging behind him. Alan threw open the barn door when he saw him coming. Tom thumped the frying pan down on the orange crate. There, he said breathlessly. Done to a T. Look at her, all golden brown and sizzling. It looks good enough to eat. Yeah, said Billy. He poked the worm with his fork. Tom took off the pot holder and glove he was wearing. Think fish. Remember, think fish. I am not singing this again, but he sings a little song again about the fish. He leaned over Billy and whispered in his ear, fish, 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 fish. Go on, take a bite. Fish, 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 fish. Okay, second bite. Fish, fish. Oy. All right. The plotters. Geez, what do you think it'll work? Said Alan to Joe. Suppose it doesn't. He didn't seem to pay much attention today. Don't worry, said Joe. We got him thinking. It takes time, and I got it all doped out. Trust me. That was a chapter. It was like 4 sentences. Chapter 10. The fourth worm. Billy ate steadily, grimacing, rubbing his nose, spreading on more horseradish sauce. Tom bent over him, hissing in his ear, fish, 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 fish. Billy paused, watching Alan and Joe whispering by the door. He he swished the last bite, round and round in the ketchup and mustard. All of a sudden, he said, "That's not fair. They can't act like that anymore. Every time I swallow, they lean forward as if they expect me to keel over or something, and when I don't, they look surprised and shrug their shoulders and nudge each other." "Come on," said Joe. "Cut it out. We can watch you for goodness sakes. We're just standing over here by the window watching you." "No, you're not," said Billy. "You're whispering and acting as if you expected something to happen every time I swallow." "It's nothing," said Joe. "Forget it. Look, we'll turn around and look out the window while you swallow." "What do you mean it's nothing?" said Billy. "What's nothing?" "Oh, come on. It's just something Joe's father told him the other night." "It's nothing." "What?" "It'll just worry you," said Alan. "It's crazy. It's nothing. Forget it." Billy tore the napkin away from his throat. "Tell me. It's nothing. You know how my father is. He's always yelling about something. Tell me or it's off." "Well, look, it's nothing. But the night before last, I was telling Janie about you eating the worms, and my father was on the porch and heard us. So he threw down his newspaper and says, 'Joseph.' So I said, 'Yes, Pa.' And he says, 'Have you ate a worm, Joseph?' And he grabbed my shoulders and shook me till my hands danced like at the ends of my arms like puppets. 'It's for your own good,' he says, and so I stuttered out, 'It's not going to do me any good if I shake to pieces, is it?' Janie was wailing. My mother was chewing her apron in the doorway. 'Alfred,' she cries, 'what's he done? You'll deracinate him.'" I don't know what that word's supposed to be. I don't know if that's actually a word. "Has he hauled down the American flag at school and eaten it again? Has he?" "So what's the point?" yelled Billy. "Get to the point. What's it all have to do with me?" "I'm coming to it," said Joe, wiping his nose. "But I wanted you to show you how important it was. My father was nearly killing me and all." He sneezed, and then Alan began to sneeze, and finally he had to hobble off onto one of the horse stalls, hugging his stomach to recover. "Anyway," said Joe, "so my father told my mother he thought I'd eaten a worm." "A what?" says my mother, dropping her apron and clutching the sides of her head. "A worm," says my father. My mother fainted, collapsed, all helter-skelter right there in the doorway, and laid still, her tongue out of her mouth, her red hair spread out beautifully in the door still. "Would you just cut it out?" yelled Billy. "Who cares about your mother? What does it have to do with me?" "I think he's lying," said Tom. "Who ever heard of some mother's fainting and her tongue hanging out?" "All right," yelled Joe. "All right, now I won't tell. You can die, Billy Forster, and you'll have to carry him home, Tom, all by yourself. Nobody says to me, 'Who cares about your mother?' All right, I'm going, Alan. They're insulting my mother. I'm going." "Don't," said Alan, running out of the horse stall, grabbing Joe by the shirt tail. "Don't. You got to tell him. Even your mother said so. Mine, too. No matter what he said, ain't it a matter of life and death?" "I won't," said Joe, and started towards the door. Alan pulled him back. "You got to. For how long have we known poor Bill? 6, 7 years? For old time's sake, Joe, because we were all once in kindergarten together. Think of the agony he'll face, Joe, the pain, the blood, the gore." Billy was on his knees in the orange crate, wringing his hands, daring not to interfere. But when Joe glanced back at him, he whispered, "Please, Joe, for old time's sake." "Well, will you apologize for insulting my mother?" I do, Billy said. I do. I apologize. So Joe and Alan began to sneeze again, and this time they had to bend over and put their heads between their legs to recover. Tom, who had been watching them suspiciously, trying to make out what was going on, started to say something. "Shut up," hissed Billy fiercely, turning on him. "You keep out of it." Here was the picture. So Joe went on with his story, how his mother had been carried upstairs to her room, how the doctor had come, shaking his head, how his aunt had sobbed, pulled down all the shades, and how this morning his mother had finally come downstairs for the first time, leaning on his aunt's arm, pale and sorrowful. How, yeah, said Tom. "Sure, so why? What does eating worms do to you?" "Nobody will tell me," said Joe. "It's been 3 days and nobody will say. It's just like the time my cousin Lucy got caught up in the backseat of her father's Chevrolet with the encyclopedia salesman." "Nobody will tell me why there was such an uproar." He wiped his mouth. "But one thing's sure, it's worse than poison, probably." "Nuts," said Tom. "Oh, yeah," said Joe. But then he and Alan had another sneezing fit, sprawling helplessly against each other. "Look at them. They're sneezing. They're not sneezing. They're laughing. Come on, eat the last piece and let's get out of here." "You really think so?" said Billy doubtfully. The sneezing did look like an awful lot like giggling. "Sure, look at him." Tom gave Alan and Joe a shove. They collapsed in a heap, sneezing uncontrollably. Billy watched them. "Yeah, they weren't sneezing. They were laughing, weren't they?" "Hay fever," gasped Alan. "Hay fever." "You've never had hay fever before," said Tom. "How about yesterday or the day before, Billy? Come on, open up." So Billy, half believing Tom and half not, glancing doubtfully at Alan and Joe, allowed Tom to poke the last bite of worm in his mouth and lead him out of the barn. Alan and Joe sat up. "It didn't work," said Alan. Joe began to brush the chafe out of his hair. "You wait. He wasn't sure. Tom was, but he isn't eating the worms. You wait." Billy's worried. He was before, and that's why he said he felt like he was going to throw up. Now he's really worried. "Suppose I wasn't lying. Did you see his face when I said my father shook me? I thought his eyes would bug out of his head." "Oh, geez, yeah, when you said your mother fainted? Except why'd you laugh so much? You kept a straight face. If you had kept a straight face, even Tom wouldn't have guessed." You laughed first. "What do you mean?" "Me? I laughed first." "I did not." "You did so. You laughed when he yelled at you the first time. You wiped your nose." They went off into the meadow, arguing. 11. Billy pushed the frying pan towards Tom. "Okay, Fink, if it's not supposed to hurt you, you eat a piece." "Oh, no," said Alan. He and Joe were lying on their stomachs in the hayloft watching. "If he eats a piece, you lose, Billy. The bet was you were going to eat 15 worms, not you and him together." Billy didn't look up, his eyes fixed grimly on Tom. "All right, then I'll go dig another worm just for him. He's so big, telling me hurry up, hurry up. I can't wait around all day. Now, don't be a sissy. All right." "I didn't say sissy," said Tom. "I just said that if the first 4 worms didn't kill you, this one's not going to. I can't help it if my mother told me to be home by 2 today. She's going shopping, so I have to mind my brother." "Yeah," said Billy. "Okay, so we'll just have time for you to eat a worm before you go. Come on, where's the shovel?" "Here," said Alan from the loft. "We brung an extra today." A worm dangled, squirming from his fingers. He dropped it to Billy. "It's not cooked," said Tom. I'll do it," said Joe, scrambling down the ladder. He took the worm from Billy and ran out and ran back and grabbed the frying pan. Tom sat down on an overturned pail to wait. He didn't want to eat any worm. It wasn't his bet. Maybe he glanced at the door, creaking in the wind. Maybe he should make a break for it. But of course he could see Billy's point. Billy didn't believe Joe's story, but still he'd find it reassuring if Tom ate some worm too. "He'll eat it," Billy was saying to Alan. "If he don't, he's chicken," said Alan, "after all his talk." "Why don't I eat it?" thought Tom. "I mean, it's a yucky thing to do, but it wouldn't kill me." He scratched his neck, shifting his seat on the pail. "I don't know," thought Tom. "I just won't, I guess." He gagged, imagining what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. He glanced at the door again. Billy kicked the door shut. "Leave it open," said Tom. "Why?" "Because I said so." "Yeah, well, you don't own this barn." "Neither do you. Your father does." Billy rubbed his nose, watching Tom, figuring he's trying to pick a fight so he won't have to eat this worm. "Okay." Billy opened the door and set a brick against it. Tom shifted his seat on the pail again. He couldn't stop thinking about what it would be like to bite down on a soft, fat, boiled worm. He scratched his ear. Who did Billy think he was, trying to order people around, telling them what they had to eat and all? Billy wasn't anyone's father. Tom began to feel put upon and indignant and stubborn. A screen door slammed. Joe coming back with the worm. Tom licked his lips. He heard Joe running across the barnyard towards him. "Billy!" Alan shouted. Billy spun around just in time to catch a glimpse of Tom pelting out the door and the door banging shut. He flung to the window. Joe sprawled in the middle of the barnyard on his back. Tom was clambering over the wall into the meadow. The frying pan lay upside down behind the horse trough. Lord. All right, we'll see if he does it next time.